Wilkins. I'm 20 years old and I'm the Media Officer of Southend Manor Football Club. My role consists of me doing a wide range of things, such as producing the matchday programme, producing social media content for our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube and LinkedIn channels. I'm also behind so much more that goes on in and around the club, such as creating press statements, player signings, so much more. In general, it's a bit, it can get a bit sort of crazy at times, but I sure wouldn't change it. I joined the club back in September 2019, and the situation behind me joining was that I'd come down to see Manor take on Ilford in the Essex Senior League in what was Michael Wolfer's first home game as manager. And I caught up with him after the game. He introduced me to Jerry, the chairman, and he basically asked me there and then if I wanted to come on board, and I said, yeah, you know, go for it. So that was realistically how I got on board and how I've been involved ever since, basically. I'd say my best game as media officer at Southend Manor, well, I can narrow it down to two games. The first being the 1-0 win over Clapton, and the other being the 2-1 victory over St Margaret's-Bury in January. The Clapton game, very simple enough. We hadn't won in about 6 weeks. It was Craig's first game as manager. So we ended up winning that via a Michael Ogboyne header. And then we had the game against St Margaret's-Bury, first game of 2020. We hadn't had a successful December, and lo and behold, we end up winning 2-1. Reece Latimer scores the winner with the final few minutes left to go, and we celebrated like nothing else. And that basically, that win ended up setting up the rest of the year in that sense. My lowest point, again, I've got it down on two sort of narratives, like two games. The first of the two bad games, I'd say, was the 2-0 defeat at home to Hoddesdon in the Errington Challenge Cup. It was just, in general, it was a bad week for me in general. We were drawing 0-0 at half time, but we just about were still in it. Then second half, Hoddesdon scored 2 goals, and then bam, they won, 2-0. But just in general, it was a bit of a bad game. I just didn't enjoy it. But it was just the fact we just weren't at the races that day. It wasn't anything personal. It was just, we weren't good enough. Hoddesdon wanted it more. It was a cold Tuesday night in October, Halloween week. What do you expect? The next game I can think of that I felt very hurt by was the 3-2 defeat to Stansted. It was a bit of a free scoring game. We'd taken the lead, then we'd not taken the lead, and they'd gone down to 10 men in the second half. And lo and behold, here we were, I think it was with 2-1, like 2-1 up. And then all of a sudden, I think it was either 2-1 up or, it was a good result. I think we were drawing. It was a weird game in general. Like, we were winning, we were drawing. And then eventually, in the closing minutes of the game, we ended up losing at 3-2. And it just really hurt, like nothing else. So yeah, that was probably my lowest point. It wasn't like we couldn't fault the effort of the lads though. It was just simply, football can be a nasty game, and ultimately, that happened. Family actually descend back to France in the 1700s, around the French Revolution period. Basically, my family in France was called the Messina family. So basically, this Mr. Messina, he ended up coming over from France, marrying an English woman, and that's basically how my family grew and developed in England. I have spent the last few years learning about the Messina family. I've learned that they were a very rich, influential family in France, and in fact they had some proper big sort of French manor houses, of which they've ended up giving a load of them to the French governments, the French cities, the states. I don't know how you want to call it. For me, more importantly, I think it's the community aspect to it. Now the thing is, over the last couple of years, I've been in club environments that have had a good community atmosphere. But I think personally, out of all the clubs and organisations I've done media work for, Manor as a community football club is quite exceptional. And it's arguably a lot more distinguishable because of we are such a close-knit group. I think the reason why we are such a close-knit group isn't because of the low attendances, but it's more everyone is happy to help each other out. So for example, with me, I help out the management team help out me, the chairman helps me out, I help out the chairman. It's all, as much as we all might be confined to our own roles technically, we all do help each other out at some point. I think that's what makes our club so good. Like, even the players help me out, I help out the players, you know. I've almost done a bit of player liaisoning for the players, you know, seeing how they're doing, seeing how they're not doing, you know, things like that. And any regrets in football? I do have regrets, but I very much have taken the aspect of that everything happens for a reason in football, and I'm not just talking about players, I'm talking about management, the media staff, the chairman, secretaries. Everything happens for a reason in football, and I think for me, more than anything, I look at myself and I go, okay, things didn't work out at that football club for whatever reason, however, I'm now going to make amends by doing this or by doing that. Or over the last 2 years in particular, I've gained a bit of a thick skin on me. So for example, you know, where 4 or 5 years ago, you know, if someone didn't want to know me anymore, I would have got really offended and really hurt by it. Now I'm very much, you know, for me, like just in general day to day, if someone doesn't want to know me, I'm like, okay, no worries, you know, I don't really care. And I think that's the sort of difference behind it all. Like, I've definitely changed how I see things, and I try and be a good person. However, it's a little bit like if you start throwing things back in my face, I don't want to know you. I'll just go, okay, thanks for your hard work and efforts, but I'm done here. You know, that's all it is. That's probably my biggest regret, is that I think in a way I made myself a bit too gullible. I made myself a bit too stupid when I first came into football. If I'd come in like I do now, you know, full of ideas, full of charisma, full of, maybe people could have taken me a bit better for a person in football. I don't know. But anything's possible. Outside of football, I do a range of things. I'm currently a student at the University of East London, where I'm studying media and communications. I've just completed my 2nd year, so I'm halfway through my course doing that. The aim is actually to become a teacher, and like in time, I want to ideally either get into media teaching or history teaching, because I love both subjects. So yeah, I've got that going on. Whilst I do that, I'm also a youth worker for kids around Southend. I attend a few youth clubs, I'm part of a few youth panels, so I'm very interested in trying to, like, you know, make sure that young people in Southend and the local area get the best start to life possible. Aside from that, I'm a local town councillor. I represent Lee Town Council, so I do that. That can be great fun. It can be challenging, but I think, like with anything, I'm an independent councillor, non-affiliated to any party, as a Lee Town councillor. So yeah, it's great fun. I think, in fairness for me, like if I'm not in East London, I'm here in Southend. If I'm not here in Southend, I'm in East London. But yeah, it's a great life, and I sure wouldn't change it for anything. Favourite Manor player is a tough one, because over the last 4 years, I've seen so many good players coming through. But personally, I would end up saying that my favourite Manor player was Mo Cargbo. I look at how he developed as a player over the course of roughly 18 months, 2 years. He came in the 17-18 season, and he then left at the end of the 18-19 season. But yeah, he was a great lad, and he developed so well, and I really cannot fault his effort and his determination throughout, basically. So yeah, absolute leader when playing for us, and in a way I almost miss him for a player in that sense. My first game involving Manor was back in April 2016. It involved a 7-0 win over Greenhouse Sports, who are now known as Woodford Town. It was a game, from my recollection, that literally meant nothing. And if I'm not mistaken, Christy O'Donoghue managed to grab a hat-trick that day. It was just a great game. I loved it. It was my first Essex Senior League game, and it was just, I wanted more, basically. However, I look back at that game now and I'm like, they're going, if only they'd managed to keep, if only the club had managed to keep the players and everyone else there on board, like, you know, beyond what had happened in the following season. You know, the club could have gone on to achieve some great stuff, you know, had the right people been on board, had the right backing being given. But, you know, it is what it is. History is history at the end of the day, I suppose. Plans for next season, well, 2020-21. I had a bit of a weird season in 1920, and I think personally for me, it's just all about, I just want to be happy again. I want to be, you know, that same happy person I was before the season ended. In fact, for me, I hate not being at football every weekend. So for me, I almost feel a little bit of a sort of mission of make yourself happy this upcoming season. Make sure what you do makes you happy, because it's like, you know, the season, like, I'm going into my seventh season in football, and it's just a little bit like I'm at that stage personally where I'm ready to go, okay, I've done this, okay, I've done that, you know, how can I make myself a lot more happier in football? So I just think realistically it's all about having a good time, making sure that, you know, if you are unhappy, take yourself out of the picture for 2 minutes and go, okay, how can I make myself happy again? You know, all that sort of stuff.